All right. So today we're diving into something, something we all deal with,
Yeah.
even if we don't always realize it.
Right.
It's power dynamics.
Yeah.
We're unpacking today Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
Now, before anyone starts thinking that this is all about becoming some, Machiavellian mastermind,
Right.
it's really more about understanding
Yeah.
how the game is played. So
Exactly.
you don't end up as the pawn.
Exactly. It's about awareness.
Right.
Green's laws are like,
Yeah.
they're a map of the forces
Okay.
at play in any situation
Yeah.
where people are trying to influence each other.
Okay. So we're going to be navigating this map today.
Yeah.
We're going to be exploring how appearances matter, the strategies that people use to dominate,
Right.
and how social dynamics can be manipulated.
Yeah.
But here's the question that I'm really curious about.
Okay.
Can you be both ethical and powerful?
That's a great question.
Can you use these laws for good?
That's a great question. And it's something we should keep in mind
Yeah.
as we go through these laws.
Okay.
They're tools.
Yeah.
A hammer can build a house or break a window.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the first cluster of laws.
Sure.
Greene calls these mastering appearances and influence.
Okay.
First up is Law 1. Never outshine the master.
All right.
This is all about making your boss or anyone in a position of authority feel secure.
It's a balancing act.
Okay.
You want to be seen as competent and valuable.
Right.
But you don't want to threaten the person above you.
Right.
The classic example is the rivalry between Tesla and Edison.
Oh, yeah.
Tesla was brilliant, maybe even more innovative than Edison.
Yeah.
But he made Edison feel insecure.
Oh.
And what happened?
Yeah.
Edison used his power to discredit Tesla.
Wow. So it's not just about being good at what you do.
Right.
It's also about managing how your competence is perceived.
Yeah.
You brought up ethics before. Is there an ethical way to not outshine someone?
That's a great question.
Is it about toning down your brilliance?
Right.
Or is it more subtle than that?
It might depend on the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about choosing your battles,
Okay.
highlighting your contributions in a way that
Yeah.
elevates your boss as well.
Right.
It's about making them look good
Oh.
while making yourself indispensable.
So less about hiding your light and more about strategically aiming it.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to Law 3. Conceal your intentions.
Okay,
Now, this is where things start to feel a bit more strategic,
definitely.
shall we say.
It's about the element of surprise.
Okay.
If people don't know what you're planning,
Yeah.
they can't work against you.
Oh.
Think about Steve Jobs.
Okay.
His secrecy at Apple was legendary.
Right.
He knew that keeping people guessing
Yeah.
gave him an edge.
But how much should we actually conceal?
That's a good question.
Isn't transparency important? Especially in collaborative environments.
It's about finding the right balance.
Okay.
Sometimes you need to be open about your goals.
Yeah.
But other times, a bit of strategic ambiguity can be useful.
So when is strategic ambiguity useful?
Well, think about negotiations.
Okay.
Revealing your bottom line too early
Yeah.
could weaken your position.
So concealing your intentions isn't about being deceptive.
Right.
It's more about knowing when to hold back information
Yeah.
for strategic advantage.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, this next law feels almost like a counterpoint to concealing things.
Okay.
It's Law 6, court attention at all costs.
Right.
Doesn't this contradict the previous law about keeping things hidden?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not about revealing your plan.
Right.
It's about making sure that you're visible,
Yeah.
memorable
Yeah.
in a crowded world.
Yeah.
If you blend in, you become irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Look at figures like Kanye West or Elon Musk.
Okay.
Love them or hate them.
Right?
They know how to grab the spotlight.
Yeah.
And stay in the conversation.
They definitely court attention.
They do.
Sometimes it feels like they're trying to break the internet with their antics.
Ah,
But I see your point.
yeah.
Invisibility equals powerlessness.
Right.
So for our listeners, this isn't about becoming a social media spectacle.
Right.
This is about finding ways to stand out in their own field.
Exactly. It's about showcasing your expertise,
Mm-hmm.
building your personal brand,
Okay.
making sure your voice is heard.
Okay. Let's move on to Law 7. Get others to do the work, but always take the credit.
Okay.
Now, this one sounds a bit morally ambiguous.
Uh-huh.
Are we talking about straight up stealing credit for other people's work?
It's not about being unethical.
Okay.
It's about understanding delegation as a power move.
Okay.
Think about Edison again.
Okay.
He had a team of talented inventors,
Yeah.
but he got the recognition.
Right.
It's about being a leader,
Okay.
a visionary who can leverage the talents of others to achieve a common goal.
So it's more about assembling a talented team and directing their efforts.
Yeah.
But how do you ensure that everyone gets the credit they deserve?
That's the key to doing this ethically.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging contributions,
Yeah.
celebrating successes as a team,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that everyone feels valued.
Okay, so less about taking credit and more about orchestrating success.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
Okay.
I have to admit, this one sounds a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Are we advocating for being intentionally scary?
Not necessarily scary,
Okay.
but unpredictable.
All right.
It's about understanding the power of the unknown.
Okay.
When people can't predict your next move,
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to be cautious,
Right.
even deferential.
So it's about maintaining an element of surprise.
Right.
But how do you do that without seeming erratic or unreliable?
It's about calculated unpredictability.
Okay.
Think about Vladimir Putin. His actions on the world stage
Yeah.
are often unexpected,
Right.
which gives him a certain strategic advantage.
Right. But using Putin as an example is a bit unsettling, to say the least.
Uh-huh.
So how can our listeners apply this principle in their own lives?
Yeah.
Maybe in a less geopolitical way.
Yeah.
Is there an ethical way to be strategically unpredictable
That's a really
without resorting to fear tactics?
That's a really interesting question,
Yeah.
and one we should explore further.
So before the break, we were discussing this idea of calculated unpredictability as a power move.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tightrope walk, right?
Absolutely.
You don't want to seem erratic,
Right.
but a little bit of mystery can keep people on their toes.
It's about choosing your moments.
Okay.
Being predictable makes you easy to manipulate,
Right.
but being too unpredictable can make you seem unreliable.
Yeah.
The key is to be strategically unpredictable, only when it serves your goals.
Okay, so not unpredictable all the time.
Right.
You just use it as a tool when you need to shake things up
Yeah.
or keep people guessing.
Right.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about this next category of laws.
Okay.
Greene calls these dominating strategy and warfare.
All right.
And these laws seem to be about
Yeah.
winning at all costs?
These laws are about strategic thinking,
Okay.
about anticipating your opponent's moves and always being one step ahead.
Okay.
It's like playing chess. You need to think several moves ahead to outmaneuver your opponent.
So let's get strategic.
Okay.
What's the first law in this section?
Law 15, crush your enemy.
Totally.
Okay. This one is about complete and utter victory.
Oh.
No second chances, no room for comebacks.
That sounds intense.
Huh.
Are we talking about annihilating the competition?
That's
Isn't there a saying about not burning bridges?
Historically, this law was often applied literally.
Okay.
Think about the Roman Empire's destruction of Carthage.
Right.
They didn't just defeat their enemy,
Yeah.
they wiped them off the map.
Okay. I see how that worked in ancient warfare. Right.
But how does this apply to the modern world? In business, for example,
Yeah.
wouldn't completely crushing your competition be detrimental in the long run?
You bring up a great point.
What if you need to collaborate with them later on?
The modern world is complex and interconnected.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Crushing your enemy totally might not always be practical
Mm.
or even ethical in today's business environment.
So how do we interpret this law in a more nuanced way?
It's about being decisive and strategic.
Okay.
When you make a move,
Yeah.
make sure it's impactful and effective.
Right.
Think about it in terms of achieving a decisive victory,
Okay.
not necessarily about destroying the other side.
So making strategic decisions that achieve your goals
Yeah.
without creating unnecessary enemies.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
What's the next law in this strategic playbook?
Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. This one is all about subverting expectations.
Sometimes appearing less intelligent or capable can actually give you an advantage.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the element of surprise.
Right.
But instead of dazzling people with your brilliance,
Yeah.
you lull them into a false sense of security.
Exactly.
Isn't this what we call playing possum?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no better example of this than Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah.
He cultivates this image of a friendly, unassuming grandpa.
Right.
But beneath that folksy exterior
Yeah.
is One of the most brilliant and ruthless investors of all time.
Right. He uses that aw shucks demeanor as camouflage
Yeah,
while he's outmaneuvering everyone in the market.
exactly.
But how can you play dumb without actually being dumb?
Good question.
What if people start to believe you're not that smart?
It's about being strategic and selective.
Okay.
You don't want to undermine your credibility,
Yeah.
but you also don't want to show all your cards.
Right.
It's about choosing your moments to reveal your intelligence.
So picking your battles, knowing when to hold back and when to show your hand.
Exactly.
Okay. What's next in our arsenal of strategic moves?
Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew.
Okay.
This is all about understanding human motivation.
Right.
Everyone has a weakness,
Mm-hmm.
a pressure point,
Okay.
a thumbscrew, so to speak.
Right.
The key is to find it.
So we're all walking around with these invisible buttons
Yeah.
that, if pushed, can make us act in predictable ways.
Exactly.
That feels like it could be used for good or evil.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
Think about salespeople.
Okay.
The best ones are masters at understanding what motivates their clients,
Yeah.
what their needs and fears are.
Right.
Then they tailor their pitch to address those needs.
So it's about understanding psychology,
Yeah,
reading people,
right.
figuring out what makes them tick.
Exactly.
But isn't there a fine line between persuasion and manipulation?
There is a fine line, and it's important to be aware of that.
Okay.
This law can be used ethically
Yeah.
to build rapport and trust, but it can also be used unethically to exploit people's weaknesses.
So how do we know when this is being used ethically?
It's about intent.
Okay.
Are you using this knowledge to help someone?
Right.
Or to take advantage of them?
Yeah.
Are you being transparent about your motives?
Okay.
These are the questions you need to ask yourself.
So self-awareness and ethical considerations are key.
Absolutely.
Now let's move on to the final law in this category, Law 35. Master the art of timing.
Okay.
Okay. This one is all about patience and recognizing the right moment to act.
Okay.
Sometimes waiting is the most strategic move you can make.
So it's not just about what you do, but when you do it.
Right.
What are some examples of this?
Think about Microsoft's entry into the AI market.
Okay.
They didn't rush to release their own AI products like some of their competitors.
Right.
They waited,
Yeah.
observed,
Yeah.
and then entered the market strategically,
Right.
capitalizing on the evolving landscape.
That's a great example of how timing can make all the difference.
Yeah. Recognizing when the iron is hot, so to speak.
Right.
But how do you know when the time is right?
It's a good question.
What are the signs?
It's a combination of factors:
Okay.
market trends,
Mm-hmm.
competitor activity,
Okay.
technological advancements,
Right.
and your own readiness.
Yeah.
It's about being attuned to the subtle shifts
Okay.
and recognizing the opportune moment.
So patient and observant.
Exactly.
Waiting for the right moment rather
Yeah.
than rushing in.
Right.
Okay. I think our listeners are starting to get a sense of how these laws,
Yeah.
even the ones that sound a bit ruthless on the surface,
Mhm.
can be applied in a more nuanced and strategic way.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about understanding the underlying principles
Yeah.
and adapting them to your own situation.
Well, we've covered mastering appearances,
Mhm.
strategic thinking,
Right.
and now we're moving into the realm of social control and manipulation.
Okay.
I have to admit, this category sounds a little bit ominous.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it's also fascinating.
Yeah.
These laws explore how social dynamics and psychology
Mm-hmm.
can be leveraged to gain influence and power.
Okay. I'm a little apprehensive, but also intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. Okay. So we're venturing into this territory of social control and manipulation.
Yeah.
This is where things get a bit more complex, maybe even a bit unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
But, as you said, it's about understanding the dynamics at play,
Right.
not necessarily about using them for nefarious purposes.
Right. These laws aren't about being a puppet master.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing those invisible strings.
Hmm. Yeah.
The ones that influence our behavior
Mm-hmm.
in social situations,
Okay.
and understanding how those strings can be pulled,
Okay.
either consciously or unconsciously.
Okay. I'm ready to untangle some strings.
All
What's
right.
the first law in this category?
Let's start with Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
Okay.
This one might seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does seem like a natural instinct to like retreat and protect yourself
Yeah.
when you feel threatened.
Exactly.
But you're saying isolation actually makes you more vulnerable.
Exactly. When you isolate yourself,
Yeah.
you lose touch with what's happening around you.
Okay.
You miss out on valuable information, alliances, and opportunities.
Okay.
You become blind to potential threats.
It's like that saying, strength in numbers.
Right.
You're stronger when you're part of a network,
Yeah.
a community.
Yeah.
Are there any like historical examples of
Um,
how isolation can lead to downfall?
Howard Hughes is a classic example.
Oh, yeah.
He was a brilliant aviator, filmmaker, and entrepreneur,
Right.
but he became increasingly reclusive and paranoid.
Oh, wow.
Isolated himself from the world,
Yeah.
and it ultimately led to his downfall.
That's a cautionary tale for sure.
It is.
So the takeaway here is that connection is crucial,
Yeah.
even when it feels risky.
Right.
You know, being part of a network, staying informed, being open to collaboration.
Right.
These are all ways to kind of mitigate the dangers of isolation.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
between protecting yourself and staying connected to the world around you.
Okay, let's move on to Law 27. Play on people's need to believe, create a cult-like following.
Okay.
Now, cult-like sounds a bit extreme.
Uh-huh.
Are we talking about brainwashing people here?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
This law is about recognizing that
Okay.
humans have this deep-seated need
Yeah.
to belong, to believe in something bigger than themselves.
Okay.
Think about successful brands like Apple.
Okay.
They've created a sense of community,
Yeah.
almost like a tribe
Right.
around their products.
People aren't just buying a phone.
Right.
They're buying into a lifestyle,
Yeah,
a set of values,
exactly.
a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
But isn't that a bit manipulative?
It can be
Yeah.
if it's done deceptively
Yeah.
or if it promotes harmful beliefs,
Right.
but it can also be a force for good.
Okay.
Think about social movements,
Yeah.
ones that have rallied people around a common cause,
Yeah.
inspiring them to work together for a better world.
So it's about the intention,
Right.
the purpose behind the movement,
Exactly.
or the brand.
Mhm.
Are you building a community around something that benefits everyone?
Yeah.
Or are you just using people to achieve your own selfish goals?
Exactly. It's about ethics and authenticity.
Okay.
People can sense when they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
They'll eventually reject anything that feels inauthentic or exploitative.
Okay, so once again, this law can be used for good or for ill.
It can.
It all comes down to how you wield it.
Exactly.
What's the next law in this category?
Law 32. Play to people's fantasies.
Okay.
This one acknowledges that
Okay.
often we would rather believe in the illusion
Yeah.
than face the harsh reality.
So appealing to people's desires,
Right.
their aspirations, their dreams,
Yeah.
even if those dreams are a bit unrealistic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about luxury brands.
Okay.
They don't just sell products.
Yeah.
They sell a fantasy
Okay.
of success,
Mm-hmm.
sophistication, and exclusivity.
Right.
People buy a Rolex,
Yeah.
not just to tell time,
Yeah.
but to project an image, to
Yeah.
feel like they've achieved a certain level of status.
Right. It's about the story,
Yeah.
the emotion, the feeling that the product evokes.
Mm-hmm.
But is this ethical?
That's a complex question.
Yeah.
As with most of these laws,
Yeah.
see, ethics depend on the context and the intent.
Right.
Are you offering something that genuinely enhances people's lives?
Yeah.
Or are you simply taking advantage of their desires for your own profit?
So as consumers, we need to be aware of the fantasies that we're buying into.
Absolutely.
You know, what are the values,
Yeah.
the messages, the underlying beliefs that we're supporting with our purchases?
Absolutely. We all have a responsibility to be critical consumers,
Yeah.
to think about the impact of our choices.
Okay, we've talked about the importance of connection,
Right.
the power of belief, the allure of fantasy. What's next in our exploration of social control?
Let's move on to the final category of laws,
Right.
which focuses on maintaining power and longevity.
All right.
It's one thing to gain power,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to hold on to it.
Right. Power can be fleeting.
You can.
How do we avoid becoming just another cautionary tale of power lost?
Well, Law 40. Despise the free lunch is a good place to start.
Okay.
This law reminds us
Okay.
that there's no such thing as a truly free lunch.
Uh-huh.
There's always a cost, even if it's not immediately apparent.
So being wary of hidden agendas,
Yeah.
understanding that everything has a price, even if it's not a monetary one?
Right.
What are some examples of this?
Think about social media platforms.
Okay.
They offer free services.
Right.
But the price you pay is your data,
Yeah.
your privacy, your attention.
Right. It's that old saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Exactly.
So we need to be mindful of the hidden costs,
Yeah.
the trade-offs, even when something appears to be free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being a savvy consumer,
Yeah.
a critical thinker.
Okay, let's move on to Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once.
Okay.
This one seems to be about managing people's resistance to change.
Right. People are naturally resistant to radical change.
Yeah.
It's about introducing change gradually,
Okay.
making it seem less threatening, less disruptive.
So strategic and incremental
Exactly.
in your approach.
Yeah.
Are there any historical examples of how, like, rapid change can backfire?
Oh, the French Revolution's a classic example.
Huh?
It started with noble goals of liberty and equality,
Right.
but the rapid and radical changes
Yeah.
led to chaos and instability.
Yeah, that's a pretty dramatic example of how moving too fast can have unintended consequences.
It can.
So how can our listeners apply this principle in their own lives?
Yeah.
Let's say they're trying to implement a change in their workplace.
Right.
Or in their personal lives.
Yeah.
How do they avoid overwhelming people with too much change too quickly?
It's about communication,
Okay.
transparency,
Mm-hmm.
and getting buy-in from the people
Yeah.
who will be affected by the change.
Right.
It's about breaking down big changes
Yeah.
into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, so be a thoughtful and strategic leader,
Right.
not a bull in a china shop.
Exactly.
That's the final law in our exploration of power.
Law 48.
Oh,
Assume formlessness.
okay.
This is about adaptability,
Oh, okay.
fluidity,
Mm-hmm.
being like water flowing around obstacles.
So flexible,
Yeah.
adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
willing to change course when needed.
Exactly.
What are some examples of this?
Think about Netflix.
Okay.
They started as a mail-order DVD service,
Right.
then transitioned to streaming.
Yeah.
Now they're investing heavily in original content.
Mm-hmm.
They've constantly adapted
Yeah.
to stay ahead of the curve.
That's a great example of how embracing change
Yeah.
rather than resisting it
Mhm.
can be a key to longevity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The question for our listeners is,
Yeah.
how formless are you?
Mm.
Are you prepared to change when circumstances demand it?
Right.
Or are you clinging to outdated ideas and methods?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into the 48 laws of power,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, power is complex and multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
The key is to be aware of the dynamics at play,
Yeah.
to understand the tools,
Yeah.
and to use them ethically and strategically.
And to always be questioning,
Yeah,
learning, evolving.
exactly. These laws are not a blueprint for manipulation,
Okay.
but rather a framework for
Mhm.
understanding the forces that shape our interactions.
It's about using this knowledge to navigate the world more effectively,
Exactly.
to achieve your goals,
Yeah,
to make a positive impact.
absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 48 laws of power.
Yeah,
We hope you found it insightful and empowering.
I hope so.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay powerful.
Thanks for listening.